Hello everyone, I am Tangabardi of 2nd MSc Physics. I am here to present my laser and NLO seminar on the versatile topic of laser filaments and its application in remote sensing, electro lasers and laser taser. I had the plan of presenting it along with my friend Muthu Kumar, but due to the sudden implication of this lockdown, I could not be able to do this. Sorry Muthu. Okay, let me commence my seminar. Welcome. So I welcome you guys to my seminar session on the topic high power lasers, which include filaments and taser teaser. So the outline of my talk is filaments and filament propagation, remote sensing with filaments, electro lasers, and finally I'll conclude with laser taser. So what are filaments? A filament is the name given to a high intensity submillimeter feature in a broader beam of infrared or UV radiation, as it was seen to drill a minuscule hole on any target such as a mirror or metal put in its path. Filaments are sometimes confused with bright light created from breakdown in air, which is just dense plasma. One of the main features of a filament that can be used for its definition is that its size is confined to a small dimension over a long distance. Even though a laser is referred to as having the best collimated beam, it diverges, reaching its size over a Rayleigh distance. A filament is a light beam that retains its size for distances much longer than the Rayleigh length. A complex combination of plasma effect on radiation, phase front, and polarization is the source for this feature. Upon observation of filaments, researchers became excited about its promising application to guide light and transport optical energy over long distances. However, they got more than they bargained for, another puzzle of nature to scratch their heads about. The mere existence of filaments as self-guided beams has been the object of controversy since shortly after the invention of the laser, a controversy that continues to this day. I'll tell you a very good story regarding these filaments. In the good times of the Cold War, there was a hard debate between a Russian and an American scientist. The Russian scientist explained filamentation as a balance between a nonlinear lensing effect, that is, a nonlinear index of refraction increasing proportionally to the intensity, and an index of refraction decreasing proportionally to the square of the intensity. The former effect would cause the beam to focus to a point, but the latter effect would take over close to the focus and maintain a stable beam of filament radius. His eminent US colleague countered that filaments do not exist, but are just an illusion created by the fact that as the intensity increases along a pulse, the self-focus recedes towards the source. To explain this point of view, a pulse has been divided in slices of increasing intensity. As the pulse intensity increases along the leading edge of the pulse, it will start to focus, reaching a focal point at the extreme right of the picture. The next slice of the pulse, being of higher intensity, will focus at a shorter distance. The fourth slice, corresponding to the peak intensity, will focus at the shortest distance. Thus, the spot of highest intensity that travels along the center of the beam, giving the illusion of a filament. In transparent solids, such as glass, that intensity spike is sufficient to shatter the material, leaving a string of beads of broken glass inside the optical component, which has the appearance of filaments. This explanation of the damage caused in solids by pulses of nanosecond duration is generally accepted. That is not to say that the Russian theory was incorrect. Somewhere in the middle between Cold War warriors, a French war scientist proved the existence of filaments, creating visible self-induced waveguides with a continuous laser beam. The material used was a suspension of minuscule sphere in a transparent liquid. The nanospheres were either plastic spheres in water of oil droplets maintained in a stable configuration in a mixture of soap, alcohol, and water. If the nanoparticles have an index of refraction higher than the liquid, it can be shown that they will migrate towards the center of the beam. Since they have a higher index than the liquid, the higher concentration will result in an overall higher index of refraction near the beam axis, which creates a lens or an optical waveguide. The distribution of nanoparticles inside the liquid will reach an equilibrium because the aggregation force of the light is countered by the Brownian motion that wants to disperse the spheres. Scientists do not seem to have paid much attention to that French demonstration, which has been widely forgotten by the filamentation researchers. The controversy has continued to grow between proponents of some version of moving focus and champions of self-induced waveguide. How could such a seemingly simple problem have gone unresolved for such a long time? In the case of femtosecond pulses, visualizing an ultra-short 40 femtosecond for instance, light pulse spread transversely over several centimeters transform itself into a minuscule light bullet is not trivial. The initial light pulse is like an ultra-thin pancake, 20,000 micrometer diameter by 12 micrometer thickness. How could the best cook imagine squeezing such a pancake into a 50 micrometer diameter spaghetti? There is no reason to expect that the edges of the pancake will move towards the axis of the beam and reach the central part of the same time. Not only does that happen sometimes, but it has been observed that bulletin spaghetti is squeezed to be narrower than the original thickness of the pancake. Through the filamentation process, a pulse that was only 40 femtosecond in duration was transformed into a 6 femtosecond pulse. The ability to compress high energy pulses has become one important application of filaments. As we saw, these ultra short intense pulses are mainly used in research to create even shorter, even attosecond pulses. There are, however, less exotic applications for these filaments, as we shall see in the remainder of this chapter. Let me move on to the history of filaments, that is, the introduction and discovery. From the laser's invention in the late 1950s, a steady research initiative has been the development temporally shorter pulses and higher peak power. This combination has exposed a number of nonlinear optical phenomena, pushing new ideas about light propagation and opening a variety of new applications. As ever higher powers are accessed, some processes that were previously observed only in dense media begin to be readily observed in gaseous materials such as air. An example of one of these processes recently unveiled in air by modern lasers is the self-focusing and filamentation of high-powered optical pulses. Shortly after the development of the Ruby laser, scientists theorized about the self-focusing of optical pulses under certain conditions. Experimental evidence was provided in 1964 when a beam focused into glass produced a 1 cm track of permanent damage. The diameter of the damaged track was a small fraction of the expected focus diameter and led to the hypothesis that the propagating pulse, through its interaction with the medium, produced a self-induced waveguide counteracting diffraction. It wasn't until the mid-1990s and the advent of CPA laser systems that similar effects were first observed in air. In a 1994 paper, researchers at the University of Michigan reported filamentation in air at a power of roughly 10 gigawatts. Using an 800 nanometer beam with pulse duration of 200 femtoseconds, they varied the energy from 2 millijoule up to 50 millijoule. At low energies, they reported small-scale filamentation and at high energies, multiple filament formations. This is what a filament picture. A typical picture of a filament is shown in the figure. In short, a powerful pulse self-focuses until it reaches high enough intensities to ionize the medium in its path and leave behind a narrow column of the plasma. The formation of the plasma causes local defocusing that halts the collapse of the beam as interplay between diffraction, self-focusing and plasma defocusing ensues. The energy required for continued ionization detracts from the pulse energy so that the self-focusing gradually weakens and it is eventually overcome by diffraction and plasma defocusing, ultimately terminating the filament. The length of the ionization channel can be on the order of a few meters and has been demonstrated to extend hundreds of meters in outdoor propagation. What are some physics behind the self-focusing? The crucial element in filament formation is the self-focusing. Without it, there would be no filaments. Sure, it is possible to focus a pulse through a lens and ionize a medium. The self-focusing effect of high-powered pulses is a third-order nonlinear optical process known as the optical Kerr effect. This effect prescribes an intensity-dependent index of refraction, N1 equal to N0 plus N2. Where N0 is the linear refractive index, N2 is the nonlinear refractive index, and I is the intensity profile of the laser pulse. Typical values of N0 and N2 for common media are listed in the table. For air, it is 1.003 and N2 value is 5.0 into 10 raised to minus 19, and for vacuum it's N0 is 1 and N2 is 1 into 10 raised to minus 34. So the rest of this water fused silica BK7. For pulses of sufficient peak power, the intensity dependent refractive index enables the pulses to overcome the natural diffraction, spreading and begin to self-focus. For pulses to do this, they must have an input power exceeding the critical power, which is described with the Gaussian pulses P approximately equal to 3.77 lambda naught square. For an 800 nanometer pulse in air, this amounts to 3.77 into 800 into 10 raised to minus 19 meters square, which is approximately 1.9 gigawatts. Once the pulse begins to self-focus, its intensity continues to rise as photons become more localized towards the pulse center. This inevitably leads to multi-photon ionization of the medium and the creation of an electron plasma in the central region of the pulse. In the ionizing portion of the pulse, high electron densities lower the susceptibility of the medium, thereby locally reducing the index of refraction. This central reduction in the refractive index, while the peripheral region continues to self-focus, which leads to the interesting energy dynamics within the pulse as it propagates. Let me move to the filament energy dynamics. This is a very important concept which deals with the filaments. After ionization begins, the transverse beam profile is distinctly separated into two regions, the inner ionization region and the outer energy reservoir. The inner ionization region has the highest intensity and a diameter of approximately 50 to 100 micrometer. The outer region, coined the energy reservoir, can extend to several millimeters in diameter and carries a much lower overall intensity, but often a majority of the total pulse energy. In a healthy unrestrained filament, photons in the central ionizing region experience a reduction in the refractive index and tend to move out of the beam center. At the same time, peripheral photons lying outside of the ionization region continues to self-focus, moving towards the beam center. It is the balance of these two processes that allows sustained filament propagation. Experiments show that outer energy reservoir is vital to the stability of the filament ionization core. When a tight pinhole is placed in the filament's path such that only the central ionizing portion passes, the filament quickly terminates beyond the pinhole. Not until the pinhole is expanded to the order of 2 cm does the filament propagate freely as if the pinhole were not there. Conversely, if a stopper is placed in the central region of the filament, the outer regime allowed clearance experiments and theory suggest regeneration of the filament beyond the stopper. These discoveries are easily understood in terms of self-focusing and ionization-induced plasma defocusing. So next, filament propagation. In nonlinear optics, filament propagation is a propagation of a beam of light through a medium without diffraction. This is possible because the Kerr effect causes an index of refraction change in the medium, resulting in the self-focusing of the beam. Filament propagation of laser pulses in the atmosphere was observed in 1994 by Gerard Maudow and his team at University of Michigan. You know that Gerard Maudow, he received a Nobel Prize along with Arthur Ashkin in 2018. The balance between the self-focusing refraction and self-attenuating diffraction by ionization and rarefaction of a laser beam of terawatt intensities created by the chipped pulse amplification in the atmosphere creates filaments which act as waveguides for the beam, thus preventing divergence. Competing theories that the observed filament was actually an illusion created by an axiconic or moving focus instead of a wave-guided concentration of the optical energy were put to rest by the workers at Los Alamos National Laboratory in 1997. Though sophisticated models have been developed to describe the filamentation process, a model proposed by Akosberg et al. Provides a semi-analytical and easy to understand solution for the propagation of strong laser pulses in the air. Filament propagation is in a semiconductor medium can also be observed in large aperture vertical cavity surface emitting lasers. So this figure depicts the filament. It has two. The first one is two mode. The first one is Kerr effect and the second one is through ionization. Here shows the graphical representation of the filament. So let me move to the remote sensing with filaments. So this is an important application using the laser filaments. Researchers haven't waited to understand the phenomenon before applying it, and it is fair to say that excitement over filaments started with the simple experiments of remote sensing of the atmosphere. A filamenting laser was beamed to the sky and spectrum of the light backscattered was recorded as a function of time. The principle is the same except that there is no airplane scattering back the light, but dust, water droplets and other particles in the atmosphere. Another difference is that not only the round trip time from the laser to the particle and back is recorded, but also the full spectrum of the radiation. For a given time delay that translates to a given altitude, the spectrum shows absorption line characteristic of the pollutants encountered in the line path. The three-dimensional set of data, that is backscattered intensity versus distance and wavelength, is sufficient to determine the composition of the atmosphere along the direction of the laser beam. The first application of filamentation was able to detect backscattering from an altitude of 13 km, which led numerous readers to the wrong conclusion that stable filaments could propagate over such a distance. So the next topic is filaments which competes with sniffing dogs. They are also used in the Department of Forensics also. The remarkable sniffing sensitivity of dogs has made them valuable auxiliary of law enforcement personnel in the detection of explosives. The limitation is distance. The nose has to come within sniffing distance to the suspect object. Instead of relying on a dog shield for protection from material liable to explode, it would be desirable to have remote optical detection of dangerous substances. Filaments offer this possibility because they are able to project a high intensity at hundreds of meter distances. When a filament hits a target, it vaporizes and ionizes some of the material. The plume of material is sufficiently excited to emit radiation with some wavelengths that are characteristics of the material that was vaporized. A large parabolic mirror can collect that radiation and concentrate it on a spectrometer. It is hoped that the analysis of the spectrum leads to an accurate identification of the material. This technique is called the laser-induced breakdown spectroscopy, or LIBS. This is very important in field of laser filaments. So this is a figure depicting the dogs versus laser filaments. So let me move on to my next topic of electrolasers. An electrolaser is a type of electroshock weapon that is also a directed energy weapon. This is used in weapon or a military. It uses lasers to form an electrically conductive laser induced plasma channel, LIPC. Let me say what is it. A fraction of a second later, a powerful electric current is sent down this plasma channel and delivered to the target, thus functioning overall as a large-scale, high-energy, long-distance version of the taser electroshock gun. These topics, electrolasers and the taser teaser, are interrelated to one another. Alternating current is sent through a series of step-up transformers, increasing the voltage and decreasing the current. The final voltage may be between 10 raised to 8 and 10 raised to 9 volts. This current is fed to the plasma channel created by the laser beam. So this is what called the LIPC, laser induced plasma channel. This is a lively captured photograph. So what is the laser induced plasma channel? A laser induced plasma channel LIPC is formed by the following process. First, a laser emits a laser beam into the air. The laser beam rapidly heats and ionizes surrounding gases to form plasma. Then the plasma forms an electrically conductive plasma channel. The LIPC is formed by these three processes. Because a laser induced plasma channel relies on ionization, gas must exist between the electro-laser weapon and its target. If a laser beam is intense enough, its electromagnetic field is strong to rip electrons off air molecules or whatever gas happens to be in between, creating plasma. You know that plasma is to be the fourth state of matter, someone would say. Similar to lightning, the rapid heating also creates a sonic boom. This is what a sonic boom is. It's a sound waves which could be heard. A week before this sonic boom was heard in my area, Mailadurai, and everyone thought that it was almost a bomb blast. The sound would be like that. This is due to the aerodynamics of an aeroplane. It's piercing the air molecules. It would create a sound which is called a sonic boom. It's similar to a lightning. It happens in a fraction of a second. This is due to the rapid heating. This is what the LIPC, laser induced plasma channel. This figure depicts. So finally, I'll move on to my final topic of tasers. What is a taser? It is an important topic which comes under laser. A taser, which is also spelled taser, T-A-Z-E-R. It is a non-lethal electroshock weapon used to incapacitate targets via shocks that temporarily impair the target's physical function to a level that allows them to be approached and handled in an unresisting and thus safe manner. This taser is it is a weapon used by either police or in military. This is a kind of shocks using laser to capture the culprits. I think this I have seen in the movie, in Tamil movie, Tick Tick Tick. Okay, next, it is sold by Axon, formerly Taser International. It fires two small barbed darts intended to puncture the skin and remain attached to the target at 180 feet, that is approximately 55 meters per second. The range of them, which extends from 15 feet, that is 4.57 meters for non-law enforcement tasers, to 35 feet for LE tasers. The darts are connected to the main unit by thin insulated copper wire and deliver a modulated electric current designed to disrupt voluntary control of muscles, causing neuromuscular incapacitation. I think this affects the neuromuscular system, which causes a rupture of the cells, which is often mistaken for unconsciousness by police officers and bystanders. The effects of a taser device may only be localized pain or strong involuntary long muscle contractions based on the mode of use and connectivity of the dots. The taser device is marketed as less lethal, and since the possibility of serious injury or death exists whenever the weapon is deployed. At least 49 people would have died in 2018 after being shot by police with a taser. The first taser conducted energy weapon was introduced in 1993 as a less lethal force option for police to use to subdue fleeing, belligerent or potentially dangerous people who would have either otherwise been subjected to more lethal force options such as firearms. According to a 2010 study titled Police Use of Force, Tasers and Other Less Lethal Weapons, over 15,000 law enforcement and military agencies the world use tasers as part of their use of force continuum. There has been some controversy attending its use on children and as to whether it constitutes a form of torture. A more recent academic study suggested police use of conducted electrical weapons in the United States was less risky to police officers than hands-on tactics and showed officer injury rates equal to the use of chemical sprays such as oleoresin capsicum. I think this is under the capsicum family, which is like almost like a pepper spray. However, when police combined conducted electrical weapons with use of other weapons, officers were 4 or 5 times more likely to be injured than when using a baton or chemical spray. A taser device fires two small dot-like electrodes which stay connected to the main unit by thin insulator copper wire, as I have said before, as they are propelled by small compressed nitrogen charges. The cartridge contains a pair of electrodes and propellant for a single shot, and it is replaced after each use. Once fired, the probes travel at 180 feet per second. For every 7 feet, they travel and must land at least 4 inches apart from each another to complete the circuit and channel an electric pulse into his or her body. They deliver a modulated electric current designed to disrupt voluntary control of muscles, causing neuromuscular incapacitation. The effects of a taser device may only be localized pain or strong involuntary long muscle contractions based on the mode of use and connectivity of the dots. The taser device is marketed as less lethal since the possibility of serious injury or death exists whenever the weapon is deployed. So this is what called a taser. It has written here, it's a Taser X26. It is a USA made taser. This is what called the two darts, from which it is used to attack the culprits, and which causes involuntary contractions for a long time. This is used by either police for military purposes for catching the culprits. So I'll end up my session with this picture. Thank you one and all for hearing my seminar. If you come up with any doubt, you can freely ask me or comment in my YouTube channel. Thank you.